So how are you feeling in terms of your energy, considering that there are 30 sleeps before you wake up in the new year? If you're like most of the people, if you're like most of the people that I've spoken to, not just in the last week, I would say it started about 2 months ago with clients expressing how they were feeling, and they used incredibly powerful words. Not, I'm tired. I had one client say to me, Celynn, my team needs to hear you. They are punch drunk tired. So we are using words like that, like burnout, like extreme exhaustion, like I'm so tired I could die. So this conversation around managing performance is incredibly important, and not just for this time of year, because we all know what it's like. Come the first quarter next year, sometimes it's just 1 month after your long break, and you may feel like that holiday is a distant memory. So what kind of things could you perhaps do from today? You can get a whole month's head start. How's that? Because most of the other colleagues outside of this room are only going to be thinking about health and well-being, sadly, on the 1st or the 2nd of January, because that's when the gym car parks are full again, and we're all resolute and we're going to quit smoking and spend more time with our loved ones and try and exercise and eat better. But we don't need to try and do everything at once. Like Roshan said, the key is to do small things and be consistent. And so to wrap up our conversation today, I'm going to share with you some of the behavioral science that I'm using at the moment that seems to really help anybody, anywhere, who wants to manage their energy and performance, sustain it. So not just do it for a week or 2 or a month while you're motivated, but actually for a whole year. So come this time next year, you don't have to be feeling punch drunk, tired, exhausted, or burnt out. And when we talk about energy and performance, generally most of us will think about our physical energy. But there's more to it. I'm sure that you've had a day behind your desk. So physically, it's not like you've been putting up a wall or gardening or doing any manual labor, but you've gone home and felt so exhausted that you can't speak or think and you just want to crash. So we know that in terms of energy and performance, we also have an emotional dimension of energy and performance and mental. Tony Schwartz, who heads up a company called the Energy Project, wrote a Harvard Business Review where he spoke about the performance pyramid and highlighted these different dimensions. And what I like about the pyramid is that it highlights that to support emotional and mental performance, so that's our IQ and EQ, we need fundamental physical energy. And I see that all the time. People with high IQ, really smart, lots of skills and talents, lots of expertise. People with high EQ, so great emotional intelligence and awareness and self-awareness, yet it doesn't matter what your IQ and EQ is. None of your talents are going to operate at optimum if you don't have the basic energy to get out of bed in the morning, or the ability to bounce back if you've gone through personal trauma or a really rough stint at work or some other hurdles and obstacles. And today we see that. Roshan touched on the macro environment and what's going on, and we can see the global sustainability goals, the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization. Everybody's talking about health and well-being as being in the top 10, sometimes the top 3 goals. It's a big concern, but it's not a sexy thing to think about. I'm a dietitian. I've worked with individuals who are incredibly sick. They have conditions like diabetes, yet they don't change their behavior. Why? Because immediate gratification always seems to trump any kind of long-term risk. You may know that your family have got heart disease and high blood pressure, and your brother's really sick, and you really need to manage your weight. Yet this afternoon, when you get home, if there is a red velvet cupcake waiting for you, are you going to say, no thank you? Probably not, because of that immediate gratification. So we're not going to focus on health risk, because I know that that's not often sexy enough. What we're going to focus on is how do we make sure that your performance on all these levels, especially physically, you can do something different that can help you stay energetically in your top zone, be it physically, mentally, or emotionally. Because we know today there are many challenges. A lot of us are feeling very tired because we have a lot of stress and not enough time to get through everything. We also know, as I've highlighted, that we don't change our behaviors easily. So we are born a certain way with a personality, and we have an upbringing that impacts why we do things the way that we do today. And we need to consider this when we make changes. And that's why understanding the science behind making behavior change can help so much. And I'm going to be sharing some of that with you today. we're going to go on a conticu tour of sorts. I'm going to take you through a tool that I've used for about 15 years called the Wellculator. So we're going to take a look at 10 destinations. I'm going to ask you to strap on your seatbelts because we're not going to get off the bus and go look at all the different sites. We're just going to get a quick feel for what's happening there, and then we're going to move on to the next destination. I am, however, going to share my contact details with you before we say goodbye today, because I would love to hear from you. I'm on various social media platforms, and for many of us in the room, we are not in a room by mistake. This could be more than a coincidence. And this is a topic that is not like a light switch, so it doesn't just go on and off. Sometimes we need some reminding and motivating and nudging, and I'd love the opportunity to do that. So if you like what I have to say and you feel like something lands for you, make sure that we can stay connected beyond today, because I'd love the opportunity to do that. So our first destination on the Wellculator, and you don't need to remember, if you'd like to take notes, I see some of you are, if it helps your wizard, that's the prefrontal cortex of your brain, stay alert, great, but I'm going to recap the 10 points just before we wrap up and do a fun exercise and create a bit of a party in the auditorium. So the first destination asks this question: how would you answer? The question is, are you a strategic refueler? So you know what a strategy is, right? A strategy implies that you've got a plan, you've got perhaps some kind of milestones and timing and some report back system. You wouldn't be in this room if you didn't have some kind of strategy in terms of business. But what about the way that you feel your body? Or does your strategy look like this? This is what I generally come across, not just in Sanlam, but this is happening a lot here. So we get up in the morning and there's morning madness, so we skip breakfast or we grab whatever we can get our hands on. We have back-to-back meetings, so we have back-to-back cups of coffee with a few biscuits. We probably skip lunch, then we look for a snack in the afternoon, and by the time we get home, it's really late, and we end up eating more than what we need because we are so famished. And I've left out the wine before dinner and the chocolate after dinner. Can anybody resonate with aspects of this strategy? A lot of nods at the front here. Does anybody not resonate with it at all? Because I'm going to show you a strategy that I try and use, but just because I'm the so-called expert up here does not mean that I have all the answers or that what I say works for me will work for you. So I am a dietitian, a health professional. I try and base everything that I say and do in some kind of science, but I also know that each of us are individual. And that's really where I'll talk a little bit later about how we should be assessing ourselves rather than buying books and following trends and doing dramatic changes to our well-being without knowing that it's really going to work. So in terms of the strategy and managing our energy and performance, we know that we need to eat to fuel our bodies because that's where we get blood glucose, which is almost our petrol or diesel. In this case, your source of energy, if you take a look, it's going to roller coaster throughout the day. It's going to dip, it's going to spike, and there's going to be lots of variation in between. Why are we looking at this piece of physiology? Because if you want to own the title CEO, and I'm not suggesting that we ask Ian to leave, CEO, Chief Energy Officer, if you want to mobilize energy on demand yourself, you need to understand this little bit of biology. Because unless you keep your source of energy, your blood glucose, within what I call the performance zone, it's incredibly difficult to function as a high-performing individual. Why? When your blood sugar drops, what happens? Who's had low blood sugar this week? Did you get a bit shaky? Do you feel a bit tired? Sometimes we get mood swings. I find as a naturally energized person, my energy doesn't drop. But there is something else that happens in each and every one of us. Dr. Brian Rock, who wrote a great book called Your Brain at Work, explains that the brain is incredibly susceptible to low blood glucose. When your blood sugar drops, the back of the brain, I'm going to simplify it, I'm not a neuroscientist, but the way I keep it understandable for me is that my lizard jumps out of her box and she hijacks my wizard. So the back of the brain, where the stress response is triggered, the fight or flight or freeze response, when your blood sugar drops, gets triggered because it becomes a matter of survival for you to eat. Because if you don't eat, what's going to happen? You're eventually going to pass out. And one of the clients that I met recently, when she had low blood sugar, hypoglycemia, she passed out and hit her tooth on the edge of her desk and chipped it. because I happened to see her when the tooth was not looking so great, and she said, "You won't believe what happened." So we don't want that to happen to us. And what we know is that it's very difficult for our brains to function with low blood sugar. Some of you may be parents. Have you got children who go to school? What is the one thing that you may argue about in the morning? It's the fact that breakfast is easy, because we understand that there's a link between eating breakfast and maintaining this 2-kilogram universe that sits on top of our shoulders and our performance. What about us? We may not be kids, but we've still got a brain that needs to be sustained. So in terms of maintaining that level of mental and emotional performance, incredibly important. What happens if your blood sugar goes too high? We've heard Roshan just mention that non-communicable diseases like hypertension, diabetes, cholesterol problems, heart disease are one of the leading causes of death and disability today. And high blood sugar over time increases your risk of developing one of those conditions. So too high, too low, not good. We've got to try and stabilize it. It's great to understand the theory. How do we put this theory into practice? I'm going to show you how I do it. I don't do this all the time. So if you decide to follow me on social media, you will see that I am part of a very exciting personal project called the Champagne Campaign. So I have French heritage, and I decided in January this year that life is long because I'm going to celebrate my 100th birthday. So Linda Grattan, who from London Business School, has written a great book called The 100-Year Life. And we know today that many of us are living longer, and the person who's going to live, I heard yesterday, and Raymond's the futurist in the room, but I heard yesterday that the person who's going to live to 160 has now been born. So we don't want to be older for longer, we want to be younger for longer. You want to feel good, you want to have what Linda Grattan calls juvenescence. And one way to do that is to look after the way that we fuel ourselves. So this is what I do, but I do it 80% of the time, not all the time. When I'm in France on the Champagne Campaign, my family are from Champagne. I had champagne last night and 2 nights before that. So I think any day where you can celebrate and have a bit of bubbly is great. But I also understand that I can't eat as much baguette and creme brulee as I'd like and manage my energy and performance on all those levels. But I can if I follow the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, I'll show you what I do. 20% of the time, I'm on the Champagne Campaign enjoying life. So generally, in terms of managing my energy and performance, I do this. Within 2 hours of waking, having a balanced breakfast is a very good strategy to put into place. It tunes your body for the day. A balanced breakfast would not be a bowl of Frosties in each hand. So we'll chat in a moment about a few ideas around a balanced breakfast. Then you need to have your environment with the right kind of snacks to support you. So what I mean by that is I travel a lot in my car, so I keep snacks in my laptop bag, and certainly when I travel. So next year I'll be going to the UK to work about 5 times. This year I went over many, many times. And to help me when I'm doing the long trips on trains, in cars, in flights, if I don't have the right snacks, it can easily happen that there's a long gap of 4, 6, or 8 hours where you can't get access to food, or the only food that you have available is high sugar, refined carbohydrates, and then I know that my lizard's going to get triggered and come out and play, because she actually has a little outfit and a name. Her name's Cammy. She has a pink hula hoop. I think it's quite interesting when we name our lizard, because when they come out to play, you keep a sense of humor when you go into the stress or fight response, and that seems to help me. So you've got to have the right kind of snacks in your environment, and I'll share a couple of ideas to help you do that. How many of you, besides today, manage to have lunch on most days? Today is part of the program, you went for lunch, but what about yesterday? 1 hand, 2, 3, okay? So a lot of us don't always have the opportunity, and that's where strategic snacking can help, especially towards the late afternoon, because that's naturally when our energy levels drop. And the idea is, if you sustain your blood sugar throughout the day, it makes it far easier to eat less at night when you're about to take your vehicle and park it under the duvet, rather than filling up your vehicle, filling up your tank over full sometimes, just before you're about to sleep. And this is one way that I find helps me to manage my source of energy a little bit more strategically. So we're going to take a quick look at what's snacking for stamina looks like, as well as balanced meals. Because if you're able to do what the French do, for instance, so the French don't snack, but they generally all stop and have a balanced meal at lunchtime. So when I was in Paris in May, June, August, Any client meetings I went to over lunchtime was generally 19 minutes, an hour and a half, and you would have a 3-course meal, a starter, a main, and a dessert, and it was very acceptable to have a glass of wine. I think we should be doing things like the Parisians, but I know that here in Sunderland that's perhaps not going to happen, so the concept of snacking for stamina could perhaps help a bit more. So what does that mean? What does snacking for stamina look like? I don't want you to leave here thinking that a bar one every 2 hours is a great way to snack. Who reads labels when you're picking up snacks or food items? And what are you looking for?
Low sugar.
Low sugar. Anybody looking for anything else besides sugar?
Calories.
Calories? Okay, well that's perfect, because there's a lot of information on the label, and those are the 2 things that I would recommend that you take a look at. So you want to take a look at the calories or the kilojoules, because even though food may be listed as really good for you, if you consume too many kilojoules or calories, it's going to make it hard for you to manage your weight if you're not burning those off. And then the list of ingredients will give you an idea of the sugar content. And sugar is everywhere. It is really coming into our diets in far too much amounts. And so being able to identify where sugar is hidden is incredibly important. When we make smart choices around what we snack, and has anybody, by the way, if we go, I don't know, to your car, if we look in your bag now or go to your desk drawer, would you be able to give me a snack? Yes? What snacks would you have?
Biltong.
Biltong is a great snack. An apple, a peachy, pear, yum, okay? Yeah? An apple as well. So fruit's a great snack, biltong. Nuts are great. When I walked in, yeah, I think you have it at the tub. The issue with something like nuts would be, if you're like me and you really enjoy something like cashews, if you buy the 500-gram Ziploc packet of cashew nuts and you're on the run, it's incredibly difficult to only have a handful, which is what a portion would be. Then it's easy to have half a kilogram of biltong or nuts, and then something good potentially becomes not so good. So take a look at this chap. He's having a protein-based snack, and take a look at how he responds, because this can be you every afternoon at 4 o'clock.
Such a feeling's coming over me. There is wonder in most everything I see. Not a cloud in the sky, got the sun in my eyes, and I won't be surprised if it's a dream. I'm on top of the world. This is the end. Beautiful friend. This is the end. My only friend. The end. Oh, all you lovely clouds.
So we can see there how he physically bounced back, but you can only do that if you have the energy, because I know that many of you have experienced what I call the wildebeestnod, where in the afternoon you can barely keep yourself awake to go home, and that often happens when we haven't managed our blood glucose effectively. However, more than just food, there's another way to boost your energy, and Roshane mentioned that one of the top 3 risks within this organization in terms of our health is sedentary lifestyle. What that means is not moving enough, being too still. We know today that sitting is the new smoking. We can't help it though, because we have jobs that expect us to sit. And even if you're making time to exercise before or after work, which is fantastic, it may not be enough if you're sitting the rest of the other 8 hours. We should be moving at the very least every hour for a couple of minutes. So we've been sitting for a while, not quite an hour, but I'd like us to do a quick activation so that we can benefit from fresh oxygenated blood that comes through to our brain. Can I ask you to please stand? If you'd like to, you can stretch and shake it out. If you ever want to increase your energy really quickly, shake your hands. Shake them. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Stop. Can you feel them tingling? Now imagine you did that with your whole body. Now I don't know what your offices are like, but if you just jump around and dance, you get the same effect, or you could do something a little bit more elegant. So what I'd like you to do, if you're able to, so if anybody has a sore back or your knees are hurting, do what you can. But I'd like you to sit back as if you were sitting back into the chair, but coming right up again. Some of you, I can see you trained. We are doing a squat. Brilliant. Can we collaborate? We are going to collaborate and we're going to do 10 together. Easy? Right, let's go. So, 10, brilliant. 9, activate your core by putting your belly button in towards your spine. What is that? 7, excellent. Take deeper breaths. 6, 5, if you can, go a little bit lower. You're looking fabulous. 4, 3, brilliant. 2, outstanding for a Friday. 2, excellent. A little bit lower. 2. Last one. And just stand for a moment. I wish you could see what I'm seeing. White teeth. Because everyone's smiling. Motion shifts our emotion. That's a fact. What else can you feel besides a big fat grin across your face? Anybody feel their quads maybe activate a bit? Okay. I think I heard a bit of creaking, which is concerning because it's a very young group. But your joints worked. Is anybody's heart beating a little bit faster?
Yes.
Okay. So right now, you have extra blood circulating faster, so you've got fresh oxygen coming to your brain. Best way to boost your IQ and feel better. I'm saying that tongue in cheek in terms of IQ, but what we know is that when you activate regularly throughout the day, there's some research, some great research by Johnson & Johnson, that shows how our energy levels over time can almost double. You also boost your metabolism, so right now your body's burning energy a little bit faster. And literally, how long were we standing for? A minute or two? Not even. So this is the concept I'd like you to think about doing differently, if you can, from today, not from next year. When you're sitting for long, be it at the office or at home, if any of you are in meetings, and the meetings are running longer than an hour, say, guys, we need to activate. Even if it means just standing up and carrying on talking, you don't need to leave the room or disengage from what you're doing. Although, there is some research to show that when you disengage from your task and you come back after activating by walking or getting your heart rate up, by going up a flight of stairs, getting some water, if you're able to go out into the sunlight, come back, you're probably going to be more effective and maybe even be more creative as you tap and integrate all parts of the brain. So when we say activate, we're not talking about going to the gym, spending money and sweating and having to put on running shoes and change and needing an hour out of your day. We're talking about a couple of minutes every hour. There's a lot of technology that can help you to do this. I've got a few apps on my phone that I use. Every hour I get a time to jam, J-A-M-M, just another mindful minute, and I'll just stretch and stand up. Whenever I get phone calls, I try and move, so walkie-talkie. So talk when I'm on the phone as opposed to sitting and carrying on answering emails, because I used to do that. So this is the concept of activating, and perhaps we'll do another one activation if I feel the energy drop. But for now, you can take your seats again. Thank you. So will this be your next meeting? The second point on the Welculator we've touched on, it's how you start your day. So having a balanced breakfast. A balanced breakfast is a meal that provides some fiber as well as some protein. I've written 2 recipe books and many blogs. So if you follow me, if you want a list of strategic snacks or a list of breakfast ideas that are quick and easy, I'm just an email away. Because this doesn't have to be a sunny side up wimpy breakfast experience. It can really be a 2-minute smoothie that you have in hand as you rush out the front door and you enjoy on the way to the office, for instance. The third point on the Welculator is possibly the most important. The question is, do you eat like an artist? So are you eating a lot of color? And by color, I do not mean M&Ms or wine gums. I mean fresh produce. So salads, vegetables, fruits. This is the one health habit around the way we eat that can reduce our risk for all those conditions. When we look at populations that are living the longest with the least disability, often this is the one differentiator. They are consuming a lot more of these foods than other foods like proteins and carbohydrates. There's also a direct link. When you're eating lots of fresh produce, that means almost at every meal, you also provide your body with fiber. Fiber is incredibly important, especially for your digestive tract. I have a workshop that I run on this topic that is 4 hours long, where we talk just about fascinating, very exciting stuff about the connection between this brain and what some doctors are referring to your colon as the second brain. So there's a wonderful now research showing that there's a connection between the two, that we've got bacteria that live in our gut that actually talks to our brain. I'm sure that some of you have heard of serotonin, GABA, dopamine, noradrenaline. Those are brain chemicals that make us feel happy, motivated, in control. And those hormones are not just produced in the brain, but also in the colon. So when your colon is healthy and happy, you give your body and your brain a better chance of being healthy and happy too. But that's a whole different conversation, and if you'd like to, stay in touch with me, because I'm going to be posting some articles and perhaps even some videos around that topic. Then, no matter what we eat, even if it is a lot of color, as you can see in that sandwich, there's a lot of tomato and lettuce going on there, how much we eat is incredibly important. Because if you decided to have had that for lunch half an hour or an hour ago, right now, how would you be feeling? Quite tired. Yeah, like you needed a siesta, which would work if this office was in Barcelona, but it isn't. So how much we eat is important in terms of managing not just our waistlines. I think we understand that. When we eat too much, it makes it hard to manage our weight, but we don't often make the link back to our physical, mental, and emotional performance. And as wealthsmiths, understanding finances and wealth management is incredibly important. It's an area that I don't at all consider myself an expert in. Perhaps in terms of being a healthsmith, yes. And I do believe that the two go hand in hand, because I see far too many individuals that are giving up their health to build wealth. And then you see individuals that use up their wealth to try and buy back good health. And actually we should be leveraging the two together. And what can help in terms of managing how we eat, not just portions, but also quality, is around being more mindful. So Dr. Brian Wansink wrote a great book. He does phenomenal research in the space around why people are mindless when they eat. And you might have seen that there's a lot trending around mindfulness as a concept in the workplace. So organizations like Google, LinkedIn are teaching mindfulness at executive level and right through the organization. And one of the aspects of mindfulness that can help you make better choices when you eat is to simply pause and breathe before and during eating. Because a lot of us are eating on the go, right? So you might be in your car or at your office and you're busy taking a bite from your sandwich and answering an email or making a call, and then you reach for the rest of your sandwich and it's gone, it's finished. And you like look around the office, you know, as if somebody had walked past your desk and taken your bacon and cheese. No, it was, what happened in that moment was snack amnesia. And we've got to be careful of doing that. So there are breathing techniques that I use a lot. I try and incorporate mindfulness and meditation into my day, but when I eat, and perhaps it's helped that I've been brought up with a bit of the French culture around food, where meals are long. So we take our time and we eat at a table, not in front of a television. But no matter where you are, you could be at another drive-through, you could be at a hotel, you could be at friends, you could be in your own home, in your car or at your desk. When you eat, is to simply take a deep breath in, a deep, long, slow exhale. Focus on the fact that you're about to eat, and then eat. Then, as much as what we eat is important, what we drink and how we hydrate ourselves is incredibly important in terms of sustaining our energy, because what happens when you don't have enough water to feel hydrated? What if you are dehydrated? How do you feel? I know how I feel. Sluggish, slow, tired. This is what happens to me. I get a headache right here in the front of my temple. And the third thing that happens, so we're tired, get a headache. Because your mouth is dry, you could perceive that as a trigger to want to eat. So many of us, 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, tired, headache, hungry, so we perhaps look for a headache tablet and a cup of coffee and a snack. when really what we needed to do was to think about how much water we've had. So it's part of our strategy in terms of managing our performance. So how much do we need? Because most of what I talk about we can measure. How many of these units do you need to make sure that you don't dehydrate? Anybody want to take a guess? 8. Okay, so we've heard about 8 glasses a day. 8 glasses a day works if you weigh 80 kilograms. Why? Because on average, we need 1 glass, 250 mils. This is about 300 mils, so about 250 mils per 10 kilograms that we weigh. So I don't need 8. And some of us would need more. So if you weigh 100 or 110, you need 10 or 11 glasses. If you are smaller framed, you need maybe 6. And that makes sense that the way you hydrate would be dependent on your body frame. And that should be baseline. You should try and consume that in a 24-hour period before you reach for other things, because often when we are dehydrated, we don't feel like water, because water can be quite bland, right? So what I generally do is I've got 2 strategies to help me get this right, because I struggle with this. The first one is I make water in sight so that it's in mind. So I've got these glass bottles. Many of you are familiar with those console ones with the different color grips. Buy a few of them. I never used to keep water in the bedroom at night. Now I can't believe that I go through a whole one of those bottles almost each night. And when I see the bottles and they're empty, it's a trigger for me to fill them up and to have them again. Actually, there are 3 things that I do. The second thing is that I add nice things to make the water more appealing. What would nice things be? Anybody else add goodies to their water? Mint cucumber rocks in water. If you have not tried that before, I didn't suggest that. We got that from the audience. Cucumber, strawberries, apples, lemon we know works, but you can get lemon at any restaurant, so you don't want to do lemon when you can do something else. Visually, it makes the water look more appealing, and it does sometimes change the flavor slightly. The third thing I do is I enjoy coffee very much, but I drink my coffee as if I am Italian. Does that mean that I have grappa with my coffee? Some days, like yesterday was a grappa kind of day. But no, what do Italians do? If you go to an Italian coffee shop and you get your coffee, how does the coffee look? Exactly, it's small, short, black. What comes with it? Water. So if you're a coffee or a tea drinker, alternate your coffee and teas with water, and that's one way to try and reduce how many you have, if you perhaps have more than what you should, and to make sure that you stay hydrated. So when we consume enough water, we end up making better, smarter choices. It makes it easier to rethink our other drinks. Because the other things that we drink, fruit juice, vitamin waters, energy drinks, regular coffees, they either contain kilojoules and calories, sugar, or perhaps preservatives, and things that aren't really serving us well. And when we have enough water in our system and are hydrated, it makes it easier not to always reach for those. And ideally, if you want to sustain high performance and good health, you really want to avoid any beverages that contain sugar, and rather make them as part of the 20% out of your 80-20 strategy, not something that you have every day. There's a lot of research to back up, especially in schools, that when children stop having 1 sugared cold drink a day, amazing things happen to their health, their energy, and their weight. What about this question? Do you know if you have a healthy weight? You would if you were part of the screenings that Celynn does, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm not that concerned about your weight, to be honest. What I'm more concerned about is where your weight distribution sits on your body. So what happens when we combine erratic blood sugar, so that spiking and plummeting, along with stress, we end up combining cortisol with erratic blood sugar, you get this lethal combination, which makes it incredibly easy for your body to store weight. And where do you store the weight? Yeah, so we get what I call the Buddha belly. Even if you're not eating a lot, you end up having a lot of extra weight around your waist. And we know that when you carry extra weight around your waist, it puts you at a higher risk of heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure, and those other chronic diseases. So where your weight sits on your body is incredibly important. And you'll know. I don't actually have my tape measure with me today, so if you wanted to stay afterwards, I generally offer to be able to do that. But you'll know if you're carrying perhaps extra weight around your waist. And if you want to reduce your risk for those conditions, then that would be the kind of weight that you want to target. And the way to do that is to stabilize your blood glucose and to think of how you can reduce cortisol. how you reduce cortisol is to activate, so to exercise when you can, to get enough sleep, and to laugh. So watch Trevor Noah more, rather than other things on YouTube. Then do you know if you're getting enough nutrients in your diet? How do you know that? You do tests. So you can go to a health practitioner and you can test for things. I recently did some blood tests and I discovered that my vitamin D levels were incredibly low, which is surprising because as you can see, I spend time in the sun. And we think that if we're in the sun, we're making enough, but maybe I don't have the right kind of enzymatic process taking place to make that happen. So tests can help. And today, we live in such an amazing time in terms of health. Have you heard of genetic DNA testing for your nutrition? So there's a great company that I know of in South Africa that you can test your own DNA and then you get results and feedback on what diet to eat for you, what supplements to take, what kind of exercise. And those kind of tests you only need to do once in your lifetime because your DNA doesn't change unless the tests evolve. So if you'd like to know more about that, you can either contact Roshan or myself because I really think that that's a good way to invest in your future and to know that you're making the best choices. Don't just start eating a certain way because your brother's cousin's sister's friend bought the book that was the bestseller in South Africa and it worked for other people and now it's going to work for you. Because that doesn't always work. I've seen a lot of individuals who try these routines that are quite extreme and can end up paying a big price, like hospitalization or kidney stones or depression. So make sure that when you make shifts that you do it in an informed way. The second last point on the Wellculator is, do you know your numbers? I know that as wealthsmiths, you know your numbers. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about your health numbers. So the big things to know about: cholesterol, blood pressure, your risk for diabetes, so blood glucose, perhaps your BMI, which is an indication of your weight and your height. But what's also important, a fifth number, is how many hours of sleep you get in general. Because many of us are sleep deprived, and when we don't have enough sleep and we are sleep deprived, all kinds of things go wrong. One thing that happens is we get hungrier and we crave sweet foods because of a hormone called ghrelin. What does ghrelin sound like? Yeah, like gremlins. And gremlins were irritable and nasty, and they were hungry. Those guys could eat. So you might be exercising and eating really well. You could even be, I don't know, vegan, like really doing great, but you're not getting enough sleep. So you're getting 5 hours of sleep a night, and your body needs 7 or 8. You will, over time, have ghrelin in your system. Your metabolism won't work as effectively, and you will struggle to lose weight. And until you manage your sleep routine, you're not going to get the kind of results that perhaps you're looking for. So you might have heard about Ariana Huffington being in the country recently, talking about her experience with burnout and her book around sleep. It's a beautiful book, by the way, if this is a topic that lands for you. It's also one that I've had to work on myself. So if you want to be in touch with me, I'd be very happy to share some of the things that have worked for me. Then lastly is, do you activate your body? So how do you activate your body? We know that exercise is good for us, but exercise for some of us is like a dirty word. It's like, we just don't want to go there. So one way to incorporate exercise into your day is to activate for a couple of minutes every hour. I met somebody on the 10th of September this year. I remember that day because it was my birthday. It was a Saturday, and I worked in Vereeniging. But this lady made my day because she came up to me and said, Celynn, I have been carrying my tackies, my running shoes, to the office, and I have put them on almost every hour. And I have walked for no longer than 5 minutes, an hour. And I have lost 16 kilograms and dropped 2 dress sizes. It was an incredible story. She's changed nothing else. She could not afford to go on a diet. She could not afford to see a dietitian. All she did was take her tackies to work and walk a couple of minutes every hour. Now she only wears her tackies. She's called the tacky lady. So after a year, her colleagues were like, why you can just arrive with your tackies on. And so she does. So what about you? Do you activate your body enough? So we've been through 10 quick destinations. How are we going to create a shift? Because I don't know where you're sitting on these 10. I'm going to ask you to score yourselves in a moment. But the one thing I know, there's a smart guy from Stanford University called Professor B.J. Fogg. and he's got a trademark called Tiny Habits, and he studies how do we create new habits in terms of our lifestyle. And Tiny Habits tells us that if you want to create a new behavior, so let's say you'd like to, has anybody got a behavior that they'd like to change around what we've discussed? Drinking water, perhaps. So let's say you'd like to drink more water. What we know is that the tinier your habit is, the better. So don't change drinking water and exercising and making a smoothie for breakfast and taking a supplement and going for a health check and getting more sleep and buying some gear all at once. Because you're going to do that on Monday, and Monday's going to go great. But Tuesday, you're going to forget your low GI snack pack at home. You're going to get called into a meeting that's going to be in a personal crisis. What's going to happen is you had no time to exercise, you didn't drink any water, you just had 5 cups of coffee, and you're going to be like, you know what, I've got group orientation this week, the family's coming on the weekend, we're watching sport and having a barbecue and a braai on Sunday. I'm just going to enjoy myself this week and start again on Monday. And then we set ourselves up for failure because we try and do too much, too fast. So Tiny Habits is about choosing one thing, and that one thing can't be big. So drinking water. You might know that you need 9 glasses of water because your weight's around about 90 kilograms. You can't go from drinking 4 cups of coffee and no water to 9 cups of water. You start with 1. So maybe you put a glass next to your toothbrush. That's what I did to start. So that when you brush your teeth, which would be great if it was twice a day, you will have 2 glasses of water. Every time you brush your teeth, you fill the glass of water and down it. And then you have 1 in the morning and 1 at night. Great way to start a new behavior. The key is that when you start a behavior, you should have 3 things in place. So new behavior equals MAT, M-A-T. You can take the rest of the day off if you can tell me what M stands for. Motivation. So choose something that you want to change, not something that your buddy, your wife, your husband, your cousin, or Celynn, the dietitian, reckons you should do. You need to understand why you want to change that, and I'm going to share with you what my why is, and we'll take a look at a video clip in a moment that can maybe trigger what it is for you. What are you motivated to make a shift in? Then you need to have the ability to do the new behavior. It doesn't help that you say, I really want to gym and look like a fitness model. If you are a mother of 2 and you're a full-time worker, how are you going to find the time to be able to access the gym and the coaching and the hours to do that? So we've got to be realistic. And then really important, the T stands for trigger. It really helps to create new behaviors around behaviors that we are doing already. The example I just gave you was you brush your teeth already. So add the behavior to brushing your teeth. I have a client recently who told me that she is squatting lots of times because what she started to do is every time she went to the bathroom and the toilet and she flushed, that would be a trigger for her to do 2 squats. Not 10, 2. But as girls do, we tend to go to the bathroom quite a bit. So she ended up, doing quite a few over the day. And she says, it's incredible. I can feel that it's toning me. So link new behaviors to things that you do. For me, walking through my front door and seeing my little Yorkie is a way for me to leave what's happened behind. My business partner, Joni, whenever she has a shower, visually imagines the water washing the stress off her down into the drain. Those are small, new mindfulness techniques that we have attached to current behaviors. Got it? Very important, though, is your motivation. What is your why? Because when you find a why, you will always find a how. You might have come across Simon Sinek. He has a great TED Talk around the concept. And I've just shared with you the Wellculator, which is 10 things that show you how you can achieve better performance and health and what to do. But none of that is actually going to land and make an impact if you don't understand why you're doing this. So what is your why? Why do I exercise? Why do I choose to do yoga? Because my personality needs to slow down. So I know that I'm a better person when I've done a little bit of slow exercise. It manages my mood, gives me some dopamine, helps me to breathe. That's a very powerful why for me because I want to arrive in front of any audience at my best. And I won't if I don't incorporate mindfulness and exercise. A why for me to look at the way that I sleep was easy because anybody who's had sleep deprivation knows that it's not cool to feel that way. So what is your why? Take a look at the short video clip and then we'll wrap up with a fun exercise. as to the complexity of the topic of nutrition and health, because we are here today because of habits of yesterday. So our biology today is a reflection of what we've done yesterday and the day before. But what we know is that at any point in your life cycle, you can change your biology if you change your behavior. So I'm going to show you a life cycle of an individual, a guy. It starts in his early 30s, and you'll see how it goes back in time if you spot the candles on his cake. There's a lot to look at. The video goes quite quickly. I've watched it countless times, and I pick up things. The thing that is meant to land with you today will. So sit back, take a look, and then we'll wrap up with a quick exercise.
Alright, what do we got?
Just came in, heart attack. 5'9", 300 pounds, 32 years old.
How the hell was that?
So when we make a shift in our behavior, when we start a tiny habit, it serves us because it can change your future. But as parents and as leaders in your community and here in this organization, your energy is contagious. So it can have huge ripple effects to the people around you. So what are you going to shift? What is your new behavior? If you take a look at the Willculator, think about what you answered yes and no to. If you answered, actually give yourself a score. If you answered yes, give yourself 1 point. If you answered no, no point, and we'll negotiate half points. So the first thing we looked at is, do you have a strategy around the way that you refuel? So are you eating in a way that enhances your energy, or do you find that you skip meals and you end up overeating at night? If it's yes, you've got a strategy, 1 point. If it's like, no, I don't know what I'm doing, I just take it one day at a time, no point. Then we looked at breakfast. So are you having a balanced breakfast within 2 hours of waking on most days? If it's yes, a point. If it's no, no point. Do you eat enough color? Enough, I didn't specify actually, is at least 5 portions, and a portion is a tennis ball size. So you need to be having color at most of your meals in terms of vegetables, salads, and fruits. Do you balance your portion sizes? If you're struggling with weights, then maybe you're not getting this one quite right. Are you hydrating adequately? Yes or no? Are you rethinking your other drinks? So not too much coffee, not too much sugared beverages. We didn't chat about alcohol, maybe next time. And are you happy with your weight? What's more important than your weight for me is your waist so the distribution of weight around your waist, if you're within the ideal guidelines. Do you know if you're getting enough nutrients? And if you are taking supplements like probiotics or vitamin D like I am, are you making an informed choice? And not just walking into a pharmacy and spending 500 rand as we can on these things and just buy whatever the magazine has said is the latest craze. Do you know your health numbers? Part of knowing your health numbers was, do you get enough sleep? For most of us, that's about 7 to 9 hours. And then lastly, do you activate your body? So are you doing enough exercise? But more importantly is, are you avoiding sitting as the new smoking? So are you moving regularly throughout the day? Anybody with a score of 8 out of 10 or more? 8 yeses. No one. All right, so generally, the average is 3. Anybody at 3? A few of us. So no matter where you sit on the Willculator, you could be a 3, Could be anybody at around a 5, anyone at a 1, anybody not even on the scale. Okay, so no matter where you are, you need to think about one thing on the calculator that you could create a tiny habit around. As you think about that, take 1 or 2 deep breaths in. You've each got a balloon. I'd like you to use that deep breath as a quick way to activate, get some oxygen into your system, but also to blow up the balloon, tie the end, and then write down on the balloon, using the marker that you have, what is the tiny habit that you are going to do from today? One thing, not 2 or 3, just 1. And ideally, that habit or that new tiny behavior should be something that you're motivated to do and that you're able to do. And help your mate next to you if they're struggling perhaps to tie the balloon. Use the marker to draw a picture, to write a word around your tiny habit. Pass the marker on once you've used that. And then turn your balloon to face me so that I can see what you've got on the balloon. That artistic food. Is that water? That's water. That's cool. That's nice and creative. You've tapped into your right brain. Won't you show it to the person next to you and just tell them what it is? Because when you tell somebody that we're going to do something, you're more likely to do it. So tell the person next to you. And then allow the other person to tell you. Awesome. There's such different things. Sleep more. So we've got lots of water happening here, strategic snacks, sleep, breakfast, I see there, the chap in the nice red shirt, strategic refueling, hydration. So what you have on your balloon today, that is the tiny habit that you leave with. If you can, think about a trigger that you can use to help you make that habit actually happen. So otherwise you're going to leave here and tomorrow's going to be a new day and you're going to forget that you even met me. You won't even remember my name. So think about a trigger, and if you would like me to stay on your radar, my contact details are up there. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I would love to hear from you. There is a wealth of information on the Be Well campaign and portal, and what Roshane and her team are accomplishing is incredible. So use the resources at your disposal and you will become your own CEO, Chief Energy Officer. Thank you.